Hello everyone, welcome to the LFC Transfer Room. 4 wins in a row for Liverpool. We may have happier fans now than there was 2 months ago. Riga, how are you feeling, mate?
Doing well, Damo. As you mentioned, 4 wins on the spin. Can't really complain. Perhaps too many goals conceded, but we just need to keep adding those points. How are you guys doing?
How about you, Richie?
Yeah, we tried our very best to throw it away, didn't we, after establishing a 3-0 lead? But thank heavens for Diogo Jota, the slotter, who came up with the goods again.
And Kevin has already told us before we started tonight that as soon as Richarlison came out and did his pigeon dance, he ran out the stadium and missed the winner. But are you glad you missed it?
I am in a way, yeah. I think everyone who sat next to me with our irate were probably feeling the same as well, because I gave it both battles. So I apologise to any of them sitting next to me who are listening tonight. But no, all good, mate, all good. Good to see a few of you as well.
I don't think you're the only person that missed it. I really don't. I think I looked down at my phone for a second, and then all of a sudden the pub just erupted. And you know what? It was one of them things. I think it was like 10 seconds, wasn't it, between the goals? So I'd rather have missed it and it happened than seen it and it not happen, if that makes sense. Anyway, before we get to a certain Mr. Paul Tierney tonight, which we do need to speak about in regards to yesterday and today with the FA charge now of Jurgen Klopp. We're going to get a couple of transfers. We'll start with Gabri Veiga. And according to Ace Football, that Liverpool have held talks with Gabri Veiga. Riga, I know is from your ballpark, this place where you are from and your family's from. Is this guy one for you?
Definitely. I think for the price of his release clause, which I believe is under 40 million euros, I think he's definitely a great prospect that we can bring in and is also contributing currently to his team. He was the player of the month in La Liga for January and has continued his impressive run of form. He's contributing all across the pitch. Perhaps his weaknesses might be more on the defensive side, but attacking and connecting play, he's definitely a very talented player. I think adding him in would assist us in also building in that team camaraderie. He's from the same city as Stefan Bajcetic, who we saw this year how much he contributed, and he's in that same age bracket. I know Bajcetic is 19. Gabri is 20 years old, so I think that connection would be terrific, and I'd be all for it. The rumors are that beyond Real Madrid, the only competition we might have for his signature might be Man City. And as we all know, Man City can definitely beat us if it comes down to money. But I definitely would vouch for him and to bringing him in.
At such a young age, Richie, do you think he's a player to bring in as well as 3 others, or do you think he's one of the 3 that we should be bringing in?
I'd like to think he is him plus 3 of us. He's he is young enough. He's 20 years old, obviously, and he's playing in a quite an average Celta Vigo side. I think they're 13th in La Liga. The last time I saw the tables, and he's contributed well in that side. You know, for someone who's 20 years old, he's made 30 appearances, scored 9 goals, and made 4 assists in the league. And you know, he certainly feels like a Klopp signing. He certainly feels like, you know, that diamond in the rough that can be molded and can be shaped. I don't think, perhaps, although he is playing first team football at Celta Vigo, I don't know whether he's the player to come in and slot in to that midfield 3 straight away. And that's essentially what we need. So, you know, if he's got a nice release clause in there, that certainly makes matters a little bit easier, because Liverpool know, you know, the finances behind it. They can say, okay, well, X amount for him, and then we can get 3 others in, and this is the outlay for the 3 others. So I'd like to think, you know, at 20 years old, he would be one for the future rather than just slotting in straight away. But it certainly feels like a Jurgen Klopp and FSG move, to be honest, to get a youngster in and to bed it in, hopefully, and then play him when the time's right.
Do you agree with the lads, Kev? Are you going with Gabri Veiga? And do you think it's one of those signs where you go and buy him and maybe loan him back because of his age?
Possibly. As the lads have quite rightly said, you know, and I agree with Richie in a way, in the sense that he's not going to come in and start these games, and it would make sense to buy and give them an option to go back. I am back to Celta Vigo and let them play for another year there. Any alternative to Mason Mount, I'd be quite happy with, and he offers that, and it'll probably be significantly less than what Mason Mount would cost, and it'll allow you, as it's been touched on, it allows you then to spend a little bit more in the other couple of areas that we actually need, and you may be able to upgrade them to another one. Like, so for me, it makes sense to bring someone in of that young. And he seems to be a Klopp kind of player, which is something we haven't really bought into the last couple of years. I think we've gone away from that in a sense, and have looked for more creative and more technical kind of players where we don't necessarily need that now. We need people who can play the gegenpressing kind of game, and by all accounts, he would fit that mold for us.
I think you're spot on, mate. Honestly, the Klopp player thing, you made a good point there, because recently we've been buying Carvalho, Elliot, like, there's creative players, and they don't have the legs, they don't have the physicality to play in that sort of midfield role. So someone like him, someone like Bečečić, a perfect example. Only a young lad, but he's physical, isn't he? He's physical, gets about, he puts in the work rate, and that's exactly what kind of player we need. It's a Klopp player, like you said. So you know what, Gabri Veiga is definitely one to look out for. But like Richard said, it should be one of 4, possibly, rather than 1 of 3, and whether he's one of the main ones to be looking at this summer, I think that's up for debate. Zahir, welcome. And Statman Stubbs, obviously, Stephen. I know Stephen personally, and he's a brilliant lad. Welcome. How are you tonight, mate? And he has his own channel. Zahir, you mentioned Ugarte, and that's who we're going to be going to next. Manuel Ugarte, and that is the player for me personally. That's the one I want. I've wanted him for quite a while. Rich, I'm going to go to you first on this one. Ugarte, does he tick all the boxes for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially as that 6 warrior role. He's. I saw someone tweet earlier, Mascherano Mark II, and that is exciting in itself. Just to even be compared to Javier Mascherano is the pit bull and the bulldog all rolled in one. So yeah, absolutely. I think he is. He's a player as well. Not just now, but for the future. He's a young lad, Uruguayan. He's got that South American bite in him. Not literally Luis Suarez fans. We don't want that again. But he's averaging. It doesn't take a genius to work out. He averages quite a lot of tackles. On FB Ref, he's in the 99th percentile for tackles made per 90, averaging just over 4.5. His interceptions at the 97th percentile as well. So this man just defends. And I think there's been some quite reliable journalists come out today saying that Liverpool are actually looking at him and Liverpool want to bring him in. And, there's no smoke without fire. That's certainly what we hope, especially when we have this amount of interest. I did also read, though, that the likes of Leeds and Spurs are perhaps battling for his signature as well. I'm sure we could fend them off, but at the same time, it still gives them a choice to make, and we are going to have to, put together a decent project that I'm sure we would do anyway. But yeah, absolutely. For me, he's that Fabinho reinforcement, I would say, rather than a replacement, because I can still see Fabinho at the club next season. I don't see him going anywhere this summer. But yeah, absolutely. Ugarte to me is definitely the midfielder I probably would prioritise at this moment in time, because we definitely need a 6.
He is definitely a wanted man, and like you said earlier, there's so many people, so many reporters reporting about. It was today Rodrigo Romano said that we're going for him trying to get him this summer. Thank you, Jen, for the £9.99. That's unbelievable to put into this channel. I mean, you've kept this channel single-handedly going throughout the last 2 years. So thank you for everything, and we're going to keep pushing these videos out just for you alone. I'm not bothered. Just for you alone. These guys do this every night, and they enjoy it. But we do it for people like you, because you give us just as much back. Also, Kev, regarding Manuel Ugarte, there's been a lot of reports really linking him heavily to Liverpool. But Jacques Talbot, who we get on here and I speak to quite regular, he says that he's further down the list for Liverpool, and the fact that they don't want to pay for his release clause, they're very reluctant to pay for his release clause, which is €60 million. Do you think we're going? Do you think we should pay for that? Number one. Number two, do you think we would pay for that sort of money?
We should be all over it. because if you look at how much Casido's going to cost us, that in itself is going to be around 80, 90, nearly Bellingham money. Rice would be the same. Why not bring in someone who is Mascherano, and in a few years' time you'll have Mascherano and Gerrard Mark II in him and Bellingham in that midfield? Honestly, what was said on our WhatsApp, I was going to mention it. For Liverpool fans, we want the next Steven Gerrard. I want to see the next Javi Mascherano at the club, because we are missing that kind of bolster midfielder who'll just go around just knocking everyone. He'll be the legs for either Trent in that number, who if we play a 6-6, or he's the legs for Fabinho, if I can get my words out. He is perfect. I don't understand why we wouldn't be all over this, and it makes more sense. And again, for the price and the amount that we have to do, it makes sense, that because again, it adds more to putting it elsewhere for other areas. I don't see why we wouldn't be all over it, and I agree with what Richie said. This should be our first sign. This should be priority. This should be the number 6 that we should be getting. And in future, you've got him and Bajcetic if you want to play that pivot as well, if you need to. Two young go about who'll go around knocking hell out of each other if you need to, in games where you need to sit back in. It's great. It'll be fantastic. And then it releases the likes of Trent to then move forward and do what he wants to naturally, physically want to do for me. So it makes perfect sense for me. And it's just summed up there. An animal. That's what we need.
We ain't got it. We ain't got the legs anymore in midfield.
Yeah. I think we're 4 for 4. I think we're all super stoked that this turns out to be our first signing of the summer. The only debate I would have with regards to the release clause and the news that Jack Talbot might have come out is perhaps it's just a negotiating tactic again to be able to pay this in installments as opposed to paying the full freight of the release clause this summer, which would then allow FSG/Liverpool a little bit more financial flexibility in bringing in more incomings. To add to the point that Richie made as far as his tackles and interceptions, his carrying is outstanding as well. He's in the 86th percentile as far as carrying and carrying distance. 90th percentile in carrying, 86th in total carrying distance, and 83rd in progressive carries. And that's something that we're missing very heavily in midfield as well. We're relying on Gakpo to come all the way back and drive that ball forward, as opposed to having a midfielder who could do that job. And as mentioned in the comments there, he's definitely what we're missing in midfield. Add some steel, add some bite, as Richie said, and should be our first signing to prioritize. This would allow our attacking players to fulfill their role, which is to attack and not be relied on that much defensively to make up for the likes of, Henderson, for example.
Going back on what Richard said, Veiga, he said about being a reinforcement of Fabinho instead of a replacement. What do you think of that? Do you think he should be replacing Fabinho straight away, or do you think he'd just be...
No, Fabinho, what we have seen now that Trent has drifted into midfield and pairing up with him, is that in a controlled area, he's still up to world-class standards. His reading of the game hasn't dropped off. I just think he was just covering way too much ground how we were set up tactically. If we can condense that and pair him up with an Ugarte, I think that would allow us to play 2 sitting DMs, have Trent in kind of that free creative role, and also allow us to bring in Gakpo, Nunez, Diaz, and Salah on the pitch at the same time, since we're more reinforced defensively. So Fabinho, not much has been said of his uptick in form. I know everyone was crying, not everyone, but a lot of people were crying out that he's done and, we need to get rid of him. But I'm not in that boat. I think he still has plenty of football to play. I just think we need to keep him to what he was prior for us, controlling a certain space and, again, cutting out counterattacks or attacks before they happen.
Richie, ideal world, right? We get Ugarte. Who is he playing alongside next season? And especially if you think about what Jen just said there with Trent right back, and he's going to be pushing that sort of hybrid midfield role next season. Who do you think he should play alongside, Fabinho or someone else?
I think if he plays in a double pivot, then Fabinho, and then obviously you can have Trent pushing a little bit up there as well. I think in an ideal world, though, you would, if you're looking for Ugarte, say number 1, I would like to see and Alexis McAllister, someone who can create more in transition. I'd like to see a transitional player, almost like a Genie type player, who can control the game, and he's just there for the legs and he's there for the running, because as we've seen, Fabinho, he's been running to the ground, if we're honest, over the past 4 seasons, and we're probably seeing this now. Gravenberch, again, as Jen said, is another one, really good in that transition phase as well. So he would be, I would like to see a transition type player. And the way, if you look at Liverpool's success, Liverpool never really, apart from Coutinho, but again, he was never replaced because Klopp wanted workhorses in there. All of Liverpool's success came from a workhorse midfield. And we didn't need the creativity because you had Robbo and Trent, along with Salah, Mane, Firmino, etc. So I'm not sure whether we need a creative type midfielder, which is why, those attacking midfielders who we have mentioned before perhaps don't come into the conversation if we are going for that workhorse midfield. Because, if you have that Ugarte who can cover with Fabinho, then that does allow Trent to do what he's been doing recently. Good stat, by the way, that I read about Trent. And again, funnily enough, when he's changed position, he's the first player in Premier League history to register 5 consecutive assists in 2 separate occasions. So again, it just goes to show what actually Liverpool need is, that reinforcement for Fabinho so that Trent can be creative. But yeah, a McAllister, a Gravenberch. I wouldn't mind Mason Mount. If I'm honest, I think he's a good transition player, but not for the money that's been quoted. I think that's been said several times before as well. I don't think anything over 50 million, especially with a year left on his contract, would be that great a business. If I'm honest, for 50 million or below, you could make a case for it. But he does come with that English price tag.
Can I build on your point there, Richie, and kind of factor in who we currently have in our squad? If we add not just Ugarte, but other players, a couple of other players who can put in that defensive shift, can control the pitch a little bit, and have skills. And thank you for highlighting that comment there. Krepin Thuram, I think, would be outstanding, or a Manu Kone, for example, as well. Having these steel-like players, these players who can play multiple roles and also provide defensive stability, would allow perhaps Elliott, Fabio Carvalho to be more involved in the squad, since we're not playing them exactly in midfield. They can be their creative selves, since we have more well-rounded players or that steel in the midfield. I think it would raise levels on multiple fronts if we were at those players, as opposed, as you said, concentrating on an attacking mid.
And we've not really mentioned on it actually, but the revolution and the reinvigoration of Curtis Jones really has shown what Liverpool actually have in Curtis Jones. He could be that transitional / creative player as well, when he has good players who can do the running alongside him. And I think an Ugarte and an Alexis McAllister, we've seen him play a lot deeper for Brighton recently, but he does have that creative output too. So again, it's going to allow anything that will allow Jones to flourish, I think, is only going to be a good thing for Liverpool, because he has been better in the past few weeks, and rightly at the moment keeping Thiago, out of his starting position, which is no easy feat.
Kev, looking at Zahir's comment there, is that the ideal for someone for you as well? See, an extra centre-back, obviously you could argue right back to cover Trent, a right winger to cover Salah. But I know Veiga licked his lips when he saw Thuram come up there, and I saw him dribble a little. Does this make you dribble a little bit, this comment?
Do you know what? It excites me. It excites me. And it shows those down in Chelsea how to actually reinvent your team and how to spend it properly. You can't just go out and physically buy the best players, because you can't, because as Richie quite rightly said, you need those workhorses in there. We've always been heavy reliant on that all through the years, all through the decades. I would love that. My centre back would be Timber, though, because you could then also play at right back, and it allows then to go push Trent a bit. What the ideal world is what Rigo was pointing on and highlighting, is allowing the likes of the Elliott and the Carvalhos and the Curtis Jones to play in their natural positions, which they haven't been relatively easy to do. Curtis Jones has played there, but not with quality players. You put quality players around them. You only have to see what's happened to Foden at Man City. You put the quality around them, and they'll flourish. The problem is that he's had to come in and do jobs that he's not necessarily wants to do, but because he's young and wants to play, he'll play anywhere for you, as with Elliott as well. But I would thrive if we got them and Timber. I'm done. for the window. I'll be more than willing to say that we're winning everything next season, but that's just me because I see everything through red tinted glasses, unfortunately.
I think we all do sometimes, mate. I think we all do sometimes. Rigo, those four a centre back, say Timber. Let's say Timber. Do we go on and win the Premier League with that sort of backup?
I think we're right there. Not discounting a questionable refereeing decision or two that might happen next season. I think we'd be right there to win the title. With those four mentioned, I think it just reinforces and replenishes the midfield and allows those attacking mids that we signed that we've been playing out of position to be put in a more natural spot for themselves and allowed to flourish. And we need, as a club, we need to maximize all the resources we have. As we know, we're net spend FC, right? So that being the case, we need to make use of what we have. And unfortunately, we haven't been doing that the past couple of seasons due to mainly injury. We have plenty of dead weight on the squad, both salary-wise and roster spot-wise. And we need to do away with that. We need healthy, whether young players who can run and, doing so and allowing these guys to flourish in their natural spot is the right thing to do. One shout that I kind of want to bring up, and I know he was injured earlier in the year, Sepp Vandenberg. He plays CB, can also play right back. He's very rapid by all accounts as well. Do we think he has a future at the club? He's also Dutch. Do we think he has a future at the club as a potential CB replacement for Matip or right backup?
Go on, Richie, what do you think to that?
Not from what I've seen. I've not seen him recently, to be fair, but at the start of the season, I wasn't all that impressed with him. I think it's always a difficult conversation when you're talking about centre backs, and Nat Phillips' name never comes up because I always say that he's done a solid job for Liverpool. I know he's perhaps not got the pace, and he's probably not the. I don't know, not got the personnel. Perhaps I don't know, but he's always done a solid job for me, and I think he should be perhaps considered more so than a Sepp Vandenberg, but we'll see. I haven't seen a lot of Sepp, to be fair, recently, so I can't comment on whether he's improved or not. Another centre back / right back who we've not mentioned is Joe Gomez. I think now is the time for him, much like Phillips actually, to either improve and start playing regularly for Liverpool, or perhaps it's time for him to move on and time for us to cash in on him, because not too long ago, a couple of seasons ago, we were probably saying he was a 50-60 million pound centre back, and now he looks half of that. So if we are doing smart business, we're net spend FC, right? If we are doing smart business, we need to be, moving these players on when they're in their prime. We should have done that with Phillips after that, that season where him and Williams had to play at centre back. We should have done that then, if we weren't going to play him more regularly. So, there are a lot of centre back options. I read earlier that the Liverpool scouts are out watching Iniaccio as well. Again, another decent young centre back. But what can't happen is for Robbo to keep playing as this third centre back. I think that will expose Liverpool far too often on that left-hand flank. And I think it's actually unfair for Robertson to be playing there because that's not his natural position. So if Trent is going to move into that hybrid midfield, or perhaps Robertson does that from the left-hand side as well, I do think we have to have better cover than just Van Dijk, who is slowing down a pace or two, plus Konate, who, as we've seen, isn't always available. But when he does play, I think he covers that right-hand side brilliantly. But again, its availability is the key issue.
Well, that's where the likes of, if we do sign someone like Ugarte, that comes in. I mean, he can cover across. I mean, Fabinho, he said earlier as well, a double pivot. Fabinho has played at centre-back before, and especially when we're going forward, Trent's pushing up and Bob's pushing up, who better Fabinho than dropping back, because he was unbelievable at centre back before he got injured in this injury hit season that we had. In fact, he was better than some of the centre backs we've ever had in the last 10 years. So going away from transfers, Vigo, Tottenham game on Sunday. Of course, the goal, the pigeon dance. There were a lot of things to talk about, but right now I want to talk about Paul Tierney and today's outcome of what's happened to Jurgen Klopp. FA have charged him, and he has until the May the 5th to respond. I'm just going to go through what Jurgen Klopp said about Paul Tierney and what he heard Paul Tierney say. He said, this is what Paul Tierney had said, apparently. For me, it's a red card, but because of him pointing to the fourth official, it's a yellow. So essentially, he's saying there, Tierney wanted to send Klopp off, but because the fourth official dealt with the situation, he thought it was a yellow card, then he's happy to give me a yellow card. Does Paul Tierney have an agenda against Liverpool, Veiga?
If he doesn't, he's doing a real good job of making that impression. That comment right there, for me, it's a red, but because of him, it's a yellow. He should have applied that on that foul call on Salah as well. The line judge was right there to be able to blow the whistle or raise the flag, I should say, if there was a foul on Salah and Ben Davies, and he didn't. Paul Tierney was the one who blew the whistle 40 yards away. And that, to me, it just shows he was trying to keep Spurs in the match. The non-red card on Oliver Skip, I think, kind of set the tone of letting Spurs back into the match. They were late tackling all across the board, and again, when you start letting things like that slide, it sends a message to the players, and it says on both sides that this game is up for grabs, and I'll help you along the way if needed. The surprising thing to me was that he actually called the penalty when Gakpo got fouled in the box, allowing Salah to score the pen. I was actually flabbergasted that he made that call, because I don't expect anything from Paul Tierney, especially
that's because he knew that Salah was going to miss again. That's why he missed 2 in a row. He was trying to hope he got 3.
Probably. He was going for 3 in a row. He might have had that bet on the side, you know. We gotta factor in all his previous horrendous calls that have gone against Liverpool or aided a team located in Manchester. And unfortunately, his attitude, you can kind of see the looks that he gives, and Klopp alluded to this as well. If you're supposed to be impartial and not carrying any type of grudge or any type of partiality to a team, then you kind of have to show out the entire squad. It's not just on the players or the ref or the managers to control their behavior and actions.
And unlike Paul Tierney, guys, whoever's watching and listening in future, please like the channel, because I know Paul Tierney's not going to be liking this channel because it's Liverpool. But please like and subscribe if you can. And just hit the notification button if you want any updates of podcasts, of streams. We're going to be quite regular as much as we can. Richie, I'm going to come to you. Let's go over Paul Tierney and Liverpool incidents then. Going through the past, last time we played Spurs, Kane had a clear red card against, I think, Robertson, was it? The high foot?
It was, yeah.
Didn't give it. Absolute leg break it was. I think there was a foul on Jota where he got bundled over. That's another one which should have been a penalty. Going back to the Man United game, Mane given, I think he blew for half time. There were like 20 seconds left on the clock, and Mane were clean through against Manchester United. And then we go to Man City as well. The handball against Everton. That was Paul Tierney, where it was a clear handball, nothing given. That goal alone, if Everton had scored that goal, it would have been an equal at the last minute, that penalty, and we would have won the league. And another one that came up today and all that I forgot about was the Mane foul by, I think it was Newcastle. He got fouled by the keeper. He got brought down by the keeper. He just perhaps put it in like an open net, and he got brought down. So there's been quite a few incidents, and Klopp faced this guy. Was it last year? He faced him face to face, didn't he? He was not happy at all with him, and from there on, I just think we've always had this. Please don't give us Paul Tierney. Please don't give us Paul Tierney. Is it too much that's happened to not question him?
I just think he's quite a poor ref. I don't know whether he has a vendetta against Liverpool. It's quite clear that him and Klopp obviously don't get along. I think it was the Spurs game, wasn't it, where they, where they had basically a go at each other. So I think it's quite clear they don't get along. And if you are the FA, I know that you don't want to put and say, oh, well, so and so can't referee that match and so can't referee that match. But there has to be some sort of accountability. Another one that wasn't mentioned actually was the penalty incident for a handball or something at the corner that Van Dijk was appealing for, going mad, and that never got reviewed. Tierney just blew the halftime whistle, and it never got spoke about. And that again, it's not quite right. The refereeing in this country, the standard is so poor, they're so inconsistent. But so again, I don't want to put too much blame onto the media, but we saw Haaland's high boot against Anderson, and we had all the pundits say, no, it's not a red card. No, it's not a red card. And then we had Jota's, and it was a red card. It's exactly the same incident if you look back. And I saw someone said, oh, Haaland's not looking at the man. He absolutely is. If you look at his eyes, he sees Anderson come in and he does maybe try to put his foot away, but it's still a foul. It's still in there. So there's still a like. So again, you have that media bias in there a little bit too. For what it's worth, I think Jota should have been sent off. I think Haaland should have been sent off. And I absolutely think that Ollie Skip should have been sent off. So again, there's so much within the English game that is just inconsistent and poor. And I do generally think that, referees are perhaps getting lazy with VAR coming in. And they know that if they miss an incident, well, VAR might pick it up. But only if the person actually watching VAR is any good at his job as well. And that's where the issue is. And that's where the inconsistencies lie. And on the pitch, I think the standard has been poor. The fact that hardly any English referees, apart from Michael Oliver, gets called up to do the big games, really speaks volumes as well. So I don't know whether he has an agenda against Liverpool. I'd say he has a disagreement or two with Jurgen Klopp, absolutely, and that might replicate on the pitch. But I just think he had a really bad game. There wasn't one incident where I thought, oh, okay, good. Well, he's let that play, because what happened was you let the Ollie Skip challenge go. That means anything can happen now. And let's even say like he booked Ollie Skip. I do think if he went to VAR, it probably goes to a red. But let's say if he does book him, then at least that sets a precedent then. I don't think Jota did it deliberately, but it is still dangerous behaviour, etc., dangerous play. I don't think he did it deliberate at all. But at the same time, at least that sets a precedent of this is what you can and / can't do. Whereas if you just allow the game to continue, then it is a free-for-all. And he lost control of that game. And we've seen it multiple times before, I think, in Liverpool games where, the Kop is so fired up and Robbo and Milner, etc. They're all so fired up. And then so many referees lose control of that situation. They lose control of the game. So, yeah, it's a tough one because Tierney's not... I don't think he's a very good ref. I think, Rigo, I think you said earlier, he's not refereeing this weekend, which might be taking him out of the firing line, but also there has to be some accountability there. PG MLO won't ever bother doing anything anyway. So, that speaks volumes in itself.
Yeah, that's them saying he was at fault without saying he was at fault. What other reason would we be pulled from matches? It's not like he was set to referee Liverpool's match on the weekend either. And they referenced the audio recordings, but why haven't we heard any of them or any sound bites or any type of clips from the audio recording?
I think they've got to go legally first. I think they've got to go for legal direction first, and then I think they
got to go through the disciplinary. It's got to go through the disciplinary first. Once the disciplinary is being dealt with, then it'll be released.
Gotcha. One thing I would definitely love to see, and we saw it a couple of weeks ago, at least one league on ref was recorded throughout the entire match. Audio was recorded as well, and you kind of caught a glimpse on with his interactions with the players, and there was. That's something that I do wish would come to the Premier League and actually all across football. I'm not against any type of referee abuse. I accept the fact it's an extremely hard job to do. These athletes are super quick and everything moves at lightning pace. And, as humans, we aren't infallible. But at the same time, the standards are quite low for the Premier League compared to other leagues. And the Premier League calls itself the best league in the world. If you want to say that, then everything needs to be the best, not just the players, because the money's in the league.
Do you think...
Go on, Richard.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, do you think, we mentioned about like the micing up, etc. Like, we have, I think it was the Australian league, they do it as well. And it was done really well, actually. And you can hear them saying why these fouls have been given to the players and tell them all to calm down and bits like that. Do you think that perhaps the English FA are perhaps a little bit embarrassed or scared about what actually might be recorded on the mics, not just from the referees, but what's getting picked up and the players speaking to the referees? Because you don't have to be, a lip reader expert to work out what these players are saying and how they talk to the referees. Could there be a spot of embarrassment and actually, we don't really want the language and we don't really want the public to see how the players or the managers speak to our referees as well? Do you think there could be some embarrassment or actually we don't want to do this?
But that brings up the players then, doesn't it, and the managers, and then they need to start reviewing themselves, don't they, and look at themselves. And these referees are human beings, but I believe that the standard they set, whether It's that bad, and it's been that bad for decades. I've even spoken about corruption. That's how bad it is. Sometimes there's no other explanation. The decisions are that bad. We had a beach ball score against us, for Christ's sake. A fucking beach ball. It was allowed. It was allowed. A beach ball scored against us. So when it's decisions are that crazy, corruption's the only answer. The only logical answer I can think of. And you made a good point earlier about the media as well being so hypocritical and saying that the same instant with Haaland and Jota and Dermot Gallagher, obviously former referee, Premier League referee, came on. I think it was Sunday. I watched it live as well. I thought I want to see what he has to say about this. And he said, obviously he said the Haaland one is not a red card, and it's the exact same as Jota. He said that was a red card. But he also said the Ollie Skip challenge wasn't a red card, the one he did on Diaz. And his explanation was that because he got the ball first.
No, he didn't.
If you actually, he does clip the ball slightly, but it's his follow through.
Well, after Diaz tries to get by him, he catches it after Diaz touches it.
I think he does. I think he just clipped the ball slightly before he does get Diaz, but that's not the point. It was a dangerous tackle. It was up eyes touch. And if you look at the Jota one, Jota actually touched the ball first anyway. So if you're going to use by his logic, then the Jota one's not a red card.
I would say just off shoe size alone, Haaland's would be a red and Jota's a yellow. I mean, Haaland has to have like at least 3 or 4 shoe sizes higher than Jota, right?
We saw it. Do you remember the Mane red card against Ederson?
Ederson, yeah.
And at the time I was like, no, that's not a red card because he's look at the ball comes over him and he puts his foot up and Ederson's face literally they connect it. So it is quite bad looking back on it, and it was a red. I was just obviously trying to being a little bit biased, and I think that was the first instance where we actually saw something like that in this sort of new age. And if that's a red card, he didn't deliberately do it. You could tell on his face, like Mane didn't deliberately do that. You could say the same for Jota and Haaland too. So again, there's inconsistencies historically, that go years and years. It's not just this season. And again, same as the beach ball thing, which looking back is now quite funny, but it wasn't at the time. But at the same time, I just think our referees are so poor. They don't know what to do in that instance. Because they're like, and they can't make a decision on the spot. So like, okay, well, I'll tell you what, we'll just allow it, and that is the problem with the officiating. They're not good enough in this.
The problem I had on Sunday, and the first thing I said when I got into that stadium was, I hope that this game doesn't come about one person in the middle of that pitch. And it did. Now, the problem you've got with Tierney, I find with Tierney, is he doesn't react to how games are going. So they go 3-0 down. Their fans start singing, "You're not fit to wear the shirt." And that's when you start seeing tackles going flying in. At no point did they actually acknowledge that was going to happen or see and go, do you know what? I need to take a grip of this. The issue I've got with it, with especially with Klopp, is that he reacts. He's a reactional kind of an emotional kind of guy, and he has let a lot of decisions, not only in this game, but then also your mind will backtrack to what's happened previously with this individual, and then your emotions go above you. He's not the only one in this league who react in that way. We've seen Arteta go at it. We've seen Pep do it. We've seen Pep go into one of our players after they scored. Nice goal, that, isn't it? We see all this, and yet Klopp gets this in, and rightly so. He needs to bring in his emotions. We have friends who watch the match. I'm one of them. My heart is on my sleeve the majority of the time, and I can't help it. But that's the way it is. It's an emotional kind of sport. Tierney, for me, has had too many decisions that he has been involved with that it needs to be discussed, and a discussion needs to be taken. And also going forward, I think they should. The PGMO, they won't, but they should sit down with Klopp and with Tierney in a room. Don't mention it to the media. Don't mention it to anyone, and just get them to sort it out, because this will continue and escalate every time he's our referee. He's done 8 games this season for us. It's atrocious. Back in the 80s, they had mic'd up players, a World in Action kind of thing it was back in the 80s. I'm showing me age now, in which it was George Courtney they mic'd up, but it's a working class game. The game has got to a point now where it's past that. But I agree with what what Damo was saying. It's down onto the players and the managers to react in a way. League One done it the other week, in which they came out after the game and was speaking about decisions that he had actually taken. That's a step in the right direction. It's the only
Bundesliga does it.
Yeah, it's the only industry, especially in England, where the only way you get marked down or criticised for your job is you don't get the next game for the following week, and you don't have to talk about any of the mistakes you've made. It's a fantastic job, and why would you?
You get a week off if you make any decisions wrong.
Exactly.
Like, okay, cheers.
Exactly, but the thing is, though, if you're looking at it after yourself and auditing yourself, then nothing's wrong. It needs someone independent to look at it and go, look, there's certain things here that we need to look at. That's my own personal view on it. I think there was wrongs on many a thing, but it's an emotional sport, and if things happen the way it is, the referees need to take Howard Webb needs to stand in and start showing a bit of leadership here, because this is just going to escalate every time he's here. And Anthony Taylor's another one who's going to be our referee on Wednesday night. So we already know there's certain issues with certain referees. They it's an opinionated. It's down to what they see, and that's the other issue we've got. We need to make it more simpler. We ridicule VAR, but VAR isn't the issue. It's the people who are running it. That's the issue for me. It's once you get that consistency right, it's the only way that you move forward with this. Otherwise, this will continue to escalate, and they'll set a precedent if they've gone after Klopp now, because you've got to start doing the same with everyone else now. Sorry, rant over.
Kev, you made a very good point about VAR then, and the fact that it can't be blamed, and I'm sick of going on Twitter, right, and people saying, bin VAR, bin this, it's not good enough. Hang on a second. It's not the video's fault you got the decision wrong. It's not the video's fault that's making the decision in the end. We're all seeing the same video, guys. We're all seeing the same video. So how can one person come to a different conclusion than we are? This is the problem. VAR, for me, is being used as a scapegoat for them to get out of their zero accountability, like Richard said earlier. There's no accountability, and as soon as Klopp does this, is held accountable, and his admitters, he said, I shouldn't have reacted like that, and I took my yellow card, and he's had accountability.
Exactly, but the thing for me, sorry to interrupt, is if there's a discipline issue for managers and players, then what's the disciplinary issue when they make mistakes and big mistakes? They are making decisions on a regular basis that are probably ending a team going into relegation.
Shifting millions of dollars here and there,
exactly.
Not just on betting lines, but at the end of the season.
And therefore losing people's jobs as well. People will be losing jobs if they get relegated.
Well, yeah, prime example, Aston Villa against Sheffield United. Sheffield United scored a goal, but the goal technology doesn't work. There's cameras showing that it's over the line, but because the watch didn't go off, the referee never gave the goal that would have kept Sheffield United up. So they're the kind of mistakes and errors where common sense needs to prevail. And that's where more than just not coming out and saying and making an apology. Apology goes nowhere. It's not as if you can get the points that you would have lost. Do you know what I mean? It's ridiculous. And until there is accountability, and quite like what Richie says, the other way as well, it's all very well blaming the managers, and we're never wrong. I'm sorry, but when you are wrong, you having a week off doesn't make it right either. So there has to be some kind of accountability on both sides. It's hard to do because it's football, but something has to be done. And especially with Tierney. Tierney needs to be sat down. He needs to be sat down with Klopp and discuss what's going on and resolve this, because it can't go on. It can't go on because it'll keep happening.
And also, Kev makes a really good point with that. Like, you then have the Carragers of the world and the Gary Nevilles and the pundits. They're talking about the referee and the past before the actual match happened. So it builds up, and then everyone's all eyes on the referee, and it shouldn't be about that. Yeah. The best referees in the game are the ones you don't notice running around the pitch. They're the best referees, the ones who you'd never notice are actually there until they're needed. It shouldn't be about, the Mike Deans of the world. It shouldn't be about that. And it does feel like it is. It's almost like a sideshow, isn't it? When it comes to refereeing, and everyone's happy to point the finger, and even the pundits, like I've seen Alan Shearer say, "Oh, VAR's ruining the game." It's, as Damo and you've all said, like, it's not VAR ruining the game. It's the people running it, and they could get it right in the Bundesliga, and they could get it right in La Liga, Serie A, Liga rather. It's our game that's being ruined by it, and it's the people running it. Like Damo said, it's a video. You can't be angry at a video. It's just someone replaying the video back. But it's not VAR. It's not a robot making these decisions.
For me, you look at the media and the journalists, right? They're all casting stones as though they're non-emotional. And I'm not having it. There's no way in this world that the likes of the Andy Grays and Alan Shearers of this world haven't been emotional and riled up in a game and are kicked off on a referee. Oliver got it last night off Madison. He got called a shit out by sorry for the language, but he got called out. F off. You're just there because of a free kick that was given against him. Now, players get emotional and react, and managers do it. Certain managers overreact to some degree to some people, but I'm not having this saintly look of, how dare he? Look what he's doing. Oh, we would never do that. Do you know what I mean? It's as though we're all there, and we've never done that in our league. You can go back in time where Shearer kicks a fella in the face and doesn't and gets away with it. Do you know what I mean? So
because he refused to play for England if it wasn't dropped.
Exactly. Those in glass houses shouldn't be throwing stones, and quite big stones that they're throwing as well at what Klopp did. He was wrong for what he done. He came out today. He apologised. That's the end of it. And then a discussion should be taken with the PG Mole, and he should be sat down with Tierney and sorted out inside, but without the media knowing or anything like that. That's the way it should be handled. That's the common sense approach for me, how it should be done. But unfortunately, it won't be.
But also, Kev, you made a really good point. Sorry, I was going to say, sorry, Rigo. We keep on missing each other. James Maddison should be punished. Every player who calls a referee or swears at a referee should be punished. Now, if that ends with 7 men each on a pitch, and so be it. But the message will soon get across pretty clearly. Like, these players are role models. There's so many issues at grassroots level, and it is because of these players and managers just thinking they can say what they want to the officials, and they do have to take some blame in that, because, and so do the refs. Like, you can't do that. I know we always say about rugby, but you can't do that in rugby. You'll get shown a red card straight away. Let's put this in the prospect of, you disagree with somebody at work. If you call them an effing S-house, right, you're in front of the boss. If you call the boss that, you're out the door. This is their job. This is their profession. What it allows young people to do who's watching this is think it's okay to talk to people like that and talk to people in authority like that. And it's absolutely not. There should be respect both ways. And it does go both ways. The referee should also be respectful. But again, until that changes, until it happens, this is always going to happen. The managers now do get booked for talking back to the referee or for being, rude to the referee, but the players don't. It's bizarre to me, that concept. I'm fine with the managers being sent off. If Klopp would have got a red card for that, as he said he perhaps should have, fine. But why don't the players do that? It's baffling to me why managers can be punished for saying what they want and being disrespectful, being really poor role models, but players can't. And James Maddison can get away, or whoever it is. Let's say if it's Darwin Núñez, because I'm sure he said a word or two to the referee as well. He should be punished, But until that society and that shift changes, it's just going to get worse, and it's just going to come to a head where the referees are going to say no thanks.
But don't players get yellows? No worries, Richie. But don't players get yellows for arguing calls and getting in there? They do get yellows. So that's within the ref's prerogative to hand them out if they so choose. I think the issue is they pick and choose who they want to give a yellow or a red to. And unfortunately, as we've seen as Liverpool fans, Mo Salah barely gets a freaking call. And in Sunday's match, in that case, he got a foul called against him when it's the other way around. But then you have Jack Grealish, and I know he gets kicked plenty often, but at the slightest bit of wind, he's on the floor, and boom, yellows and free kicks being handed out like candy for Man City. So
is that because Grealish is vocal about when he gets fouled? Maybe Grealish is vocal because you see him appearing. He's up and he's shouting and
you see his hair flopping all around.
And he's running over to the ref and talking to the ref. And then, he does get those free kicks, whereas Salah just seems to put his hands in the air and then that's it. He'll just run off again. So maybe it's not within his personality, but again, you shouldn't have to be begging for free kicks like that.
Yeah, exactly. You shouldn't have to make a show or
it's like going
remonstrate
down in the box, and it's like going down. People are diving because they're not going to get the foul. I've seen plenty of times where players been dragged or kicked and everything like that, and because they don't go down, they get the penalty. And this is why diving is coming to the sport, because that's the only way they're going to get the penalty. And the only way it's sorted out is if referees standards improve.
Exactly. But you'd also have it with Gabriel Jesus in the Arsenal game, feigning and head injury, so we could get the time and the ball to be stopped. What we need, and it's a simple thing, we need refs to referee the game and not go in with an opinion or an assumption of how the game is going to go. Yes, you need to know who to be looking at, but just ref the game as you see it, as you visually see it. Why is that so hard to do? Why is that so blatantly difficult for a lot of referees in this country to just do the simples and just keep it at that? Because if you do it that and do it right, we would never know that you were there. It's as though I don't know. Go on, Rigo. You got your hand up there, mate.
The other thing, I before we move on from the refereeing conversation, the other thing I want to add as well, and we saw it implemented in the World Cup, is the time added. And that's something that I think needs to come to the Premier League as well. Newcastle is sitting in third place, and they have the ball on the pitch the least amount of time of anyone in the Premier League, and the ball needs to be in play. All this time wasting needs to be done in with. If you want to waste time, great. We're just going to tack it on at the end of the half or the end of the match, and I don't care what you do with these injuries. I just wanted to build on your comment with regards to Gabriel Jesus wasting time. If that was taken into account correctly, much more time would be added at the conclusion of a match. And that, in the end, is repayment to the fans, because as fans, we want to see actual footy being played, not just a bunch of posturing on the pitch.
So before we move on to the little preview to tomorrow's game, basically to sum up that, we all agree that accountability needs to be had, both refereeing-wise and in terms of players, managers. Accountability across the park, pretty much. And the standard of refereeing needs to be upped. It's as simple as that. Whether Howard Webb gets everyone in and get more on training, and I just think with Howard Webb in charge, for me, it doesn't look good, because Howard Webb is known for a certain team across the pond, and for me, the only way we go forward now is if this conversation needs to be had in mainstream media as well, because a lot of mainstream media seem to hide the fact, and they seem to blame Klopp and Klopp's this, Klopp this, he shouldn't be doing this. But Pep Guardiola did it the other week in front of our players, by the way. He laughed in front of our players, which is completely disrespectful. And if we're gonna be like that with one manager, we need to be like that with everyone.
David Moyes.
If a certain call is going to be like that in one game, it needs to be like that in the next game. The consistency is key. I think Kadir says it there. Consistency is the key word. Consistency and accountability. And until we get that, nothing's going to be sorted out. Like Richard said, nothing's going to be sorted out. It's just going to be the same every single year. It's been the same every single year since I've been born. From what I know, these referees have been shocking since in this country.
Question: do you think they care to fix it at all? Because again, it also provides a bunch of talking points and subjects to fill the air and provide coverage and eyeballs to the league as well.
And that's where corruption comes in. Because the only logical explanation for it all is corruption. If they're choosing to do these decisions, they're choosing to have talking points and be the center of the attention. And it's probably good for like us talking about it now. It's good for views. And it's the exact same with mainstream media. They love talking about it. They've got Ref Watch now on every Monday. Imagine if the refs did their job. They wouldn't have a fucking job. What's Ref Watch? If the refs did the job, they wouldn't be getting money for doing that Ref Watch. Dermot Gallagher be outside Job Centre tomorrow morning.
Mark Clattenburg wouldn't have a job either on ESPN FC or wherever else he appears.
I also love the fact it's called Ref Watch, because a few years ago in this country we had a program called Crime Watch, and it was about criminals as well. So it's very aptly named.
I think we're summing up there, Richie. I think we'll leave the refs on that. Corruption, they are criminals. It's pretty much Crime Watch 2.0. We'll leave it as that. Fulham tomorrow then, boys. Fulham tomorrow. Can we make it 5 in a row? Jota looks like he's going to be missing, according to Jurgen Klopp, but it's not that too big of a miss, is it, Vigo?
What was that? Damo? Sorry, I was
Jota
pulling up the match.
Yes.
Would you ask me? I'm so sorry.
I said Jota's looking like he's going to miss tomorrow, but is that big of a miss?
I think so because he's been banging in the goals for us, and again he won the match on Sunday. Brace mixed in, and he's been on absolute fire. But I think it could be a benefit because he's dealing with a back issue. I think it could benefit in bringing Nunez back into the starting lineup, hopefully. But we shall see. I know Diaz started on Sunday. I kind of expect the same lineup to be on the pitch tomorrow, with probably Henderson coming in for Elliott, just because I really don't know at this point why. But Jota would be a big miss, especially off the bench as an attacking option. Hopefully we don't need him and can kind of put this match to bed early, but we said that on Sunday as well. But I think he would be a big miss.
Kev, are we going for Diaz, Salah, Gakpo up front?
I would say so. And then bring Nunez off the bench. I think he's fallen out of favour for whatever reason with Klopp. My own personal opinion on that, I think it's due to the language barrier. The fact that he hasn't gone in and got his English up to a certain standard. That's only my personal opinion. Maybe I'm looking into it a bit more than what I need to, but I'd say it'll be a similar side that played against Tottenham. And against the Fulham side, that I'll be honest, really have got nothing to play for, so we should be able to put these to bed. Fingers crossed.
Richard, do you think it's a game where Nunez should be starting and maybe give him a chance against a Fulham like this?
I don't know, because Gakpo has been playing out of his skin in the new role. I think that, while we actually have nothing to play for, let's say, I personally think Champions League's gone. I'd love for us to get Europa League, and Kevin and I have had discussions about going to Dublin for the final that I cannot wait for. So at this point in time, I don't mind. Gakpo's like developing in that role, and I think he remains there until the end of the season so that he gets the game time. As for Nunez, it's dead weird because he's the menace in that Liverpool attack, and he offers something so different than to what everybody else does. He's direct, he's quick, he's pacey, and I know Salah has those attributes too, but there's something different about Darwin Nunez where you just feel like something's going to happen. Even if he's off the ball, there's always that moment in there. Salah's irreplaceable. If they really wanted to rest Salah, I suppose Gakpo could go out on the right, Nunez could go through the middle, and Diaz on the left. But I agree with what the lads have said. I think it'll be Gakpo through the middle with Diaz and Salah flanking him. Personally, I'd like to see Gakpo maybe play as a 10 and Nunez through the middle, but I don't think I can't see that happening. If I'm honest, I think that's too attacking, and we get left exposed at the best of times about playing four attackers on the field.
That's for next season once we have midfielders, I think.
Yeah, when we've got legs that can actually run and cover ground, then maybe we could play four attackers who don't need to do that. But Gakpo, to be fair to him, does get back, and he does put in the hard grounds, much like Bobby used to do, or still did this season, obviously when he was fit. So yeah, for me, I think it stays the same. I think Henderson does come back in. It was a shame about Elliott because I was hoping that Elliott made that role his own. Almost that like hybrid 8 to 10 role, and I think that's perhaps where Elliott would be more comfortable in the attacking position. But it was a bit of a mare game. He was there, he was okay.
Do you think Jones will keep his place, then, or do you think Thiago might?
Do you know what I'd like to see? Fabinho, Thiago, Jones. If I'm completely honest, I don't think we've got anything to lose at this point in time. But I'd like to see Jones still stay within the team. I certainly don't think he's warranted, being dropped, especially since he actually did score against Spurs as well.
Jones on the right would be very interesting. Move him off the left, put Thiago there, and put him on the right. But I think Thiago's dealing with a niggle, right? Isn't he?
Yeah, he wasn't in the squad, was he? We saw him talking to Darwin. I think he was translating by the looks of it and trying to give him instructions. So again, to what Kev said, You know, Jurgen likes
Klopp
little
like what was
bits.
going on there. Yeah, Klopp looked at him.
Yeah,
Didn't he?
you know, and then he ran off towards the stands again. So he must have been. But you know, I agree with what Kev said about the language barrier. I think Klopp likes players to come in and give the extra mile. And if Nunez's English isn't up to where he perhaps wants him to be, he won't play him. And I think that's why he likes Gakpo. He makes lots of references about Cody Gakpo's dedication to the game, and we know that he has his own analyst and that he goes after the game and he looks to improve himself. And I think, you know, from Jurgen Klopp's press conference today, saying he's been a breath of fresh air. If I'm Nunez reading those, Nunez can't because he can't speak English yet, which is probably a good thing there. But if I'm reading those, like, he's a breath of fresh air, I'm like, I've only been here 5 minutes, you know, and already someone's the new shiny toy. And that might be Klopp psychological coming in saying, listen, this is what, you know, I will praise you when it's due to be praised. So I think Kev has a good point there.
Kev, are we making it 5 wins out of 5?
I would say definitely so. I don't think this Fulham have got much to play for this season. Now I'm probably, you know, I haven't seen much of them. They haven't got. They're not racing for Europe. We have a good record against Silver. I can only see Liverpool win, to be honest. And I would probably go 3-0 myself personally.
Easy win. Riga, going back to the Fulham reverse fixture, it was a game we lost. Was it second game of season? First game of season, wasn't it? First game of season. I know we drew.
Yeah,
Did we draw?
Yeah, we drew. Yeah,
we drew 2-2. 2 weeks. Nunes came on and saved us, didn't he? And that was first game of season. That set up the season, to be honest. I think from there on, it just seemed to be
coming out of the Community Shield, high hopes to.
I mean, he just said 3-0. It's quite convincing, but having looked back at that game, that draw, and then we lost to Palace, didn't we? So it was a shit start to the season. But
no, we drew with Palace.
Do we do 1-1? Do we draw 1-1?
Yeah.
We were drawing like crazy.
But this is a different Liverpool, isn't it, Rigo? It's a different Liverpool, and Kev's coming into this confident now. Has he every right to be confident?
I think so, provided we're a little bit more sound defensively. You know, even Nottingham Forest, for all the turnover they've had on the squad, they gave us issues, and we've shipped 7 goals in the last 4 matches as well. We were on a good stretch there where Ali was getting a bunch of clean sheets. And we've kind of gone away from that with this new implementation of Trent moving up to midfield in the attacking scheme. But I think we have enough to pull it out tomorrow. I will go not as confident as Kev. I think we can go 2-0 and take 3 points on tomorrow, Wednesday.
Pitchy, full house.
Yeah, I think full house, but I can't see us keeping a clean sheet. Just of the way that we are at the moment. At home, though, massive advantage. That Fulham game, I had one of the worst hangovers of my life. I was at a stag in Newcastle for that first game of the season, surrounded obviously by Man United fans. As long as I'm not feeling like that again, and as long as Liverpool don't do that to us again, then I'll take it any day. I'll scrape a 1-0 or 2-1 or 3-2, whatever it is, but. Please, let's not do a Spurs again. As great as it was, let's not let a 3-goal lead slip or any lead. That would be lovely.
Exactly.
That is a bad scenario, that, mate. Hangover, surrounded by Man fans watching Liverpool drop points.
In Newcastle on a second day of a stag. Yeah, it literally was hell. When I was just sitting there, like, not even Liverpool can cheer me up. I'm just in a pit of hell.
I feel that pain.
before we go, boys, 5 wins out of 5. We're going to make it. I think we all agree that tomorrow. Top 4. I know it. I agree with Richie. I think it's down personally, but there's still a slight percentage that we can do it. Mathematical, we can do it. Man United are shit, aren't they? Man United are shit. They can drop points. They're fucking shit. I'm not having it. They're shit. They got lucky on Sunday again, and. If we continue to keep that mentality, I think we can win every game. And that's all we can do, can't we, Kev? I mean, if we continue to keep winning every game...
Unfortunately, it's so cliched. We can only look after ourselves. And if we do what we do and we can go on a nine-game unbeaten run, then we see at the end of the season where it ends up. If it gets us Champions League, happy days. If it gets us... Europa, I'm going to Dublin with Richie on the ferry. So, it's all good. Do you know what I mean? So, and then it'll be we will do one of these on the way over. I think be great. But that's the way I see it. We can only look after what we can, and we've only got ourselves to blame for the reasons why we are now clinging on with any kind of hope. But I always think until it's mathematically impossible, and we win all our games, we'll see where we are at the end of the season. Everyone else has got a few games. They can drop points. Let's see what happens.
Richie, is there any slight hope inside you? Deep down, deep down. Is there anything there?
Yeah, Liverpool will always turn doubters to believers, especially this Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. The only issue is, like you've said, Man United are shite, but they still keep on managing to grind out results. And that's the issue. Whereas when Liverpool play poor, we don't grind out results this season. I think Newcastle are perhaps far and away. They have got Arsenal, though, next game. Now, if they lose that and Liverpool obviously beat Fulham tomorrow, that does put a little bit of pressure back on Newcastle. They've got Everton. They haven't got Everton. They've got Leeds who are in a relegation scrap and Big Sam coming in. They've got Brighton who are doing very well. Leicester in a relegation scrap. And, they've got Chelsea last game. Let's scratch that because they're dog. So, there is hope there. There is absolutely hope there. And again, until it's impossible, like Kev said, Liverpool fans will believe until the end that we can get the top four.
Rigo and Andrew, if we take over Manchester United for top four, do you reckon Man United fans come on Twitter again?
Of course. They'll find some way to blame somebody or another way to denigrate whatever Liverpool has done, which is their MO. But
I've seen a lot of posts in the last couple of days laughing at Liverpool being in Europa League. Bearing in mind, guys, this is like 1 year with the Europa League here. When Man United are practically, they own the thing. They know the theme tune. I don't even know the fucking theme tune to it.
They forgot the Champions League theme.
They know the Europa one. This year, though, when they thought they was going to win it, they were all quite happy to be in the Europa League when they thought they was going to win it. And it was Ten Hag's, Barmy Army, etc. Ten Hag was going to bring him a European trophy in his first season. They was loving it then. So, yeah, we'll see because
they'll be back in it next year. They're knocked out with group stages, so it's all right mocking Man United fans. This Europa League is your competition right now. It's not back in Fergie days where Champions League you making it every single season. Europa League is yours. You know the lyrics off by heart for that song. I haven't a fucking clue what it does. I'm used to Champions. All right, Rigo, would it be the perfect end to a shitstorm?
It would be a perfect cap on this roller coaster of a season to kind of squeak a top four spot at the end. It's going to be super tough to do so. Realistically, even if we win out all our matches, we can only get up to 71 points. And currently Newcastle at 65 and Man United at 63 with a game in hand against us. It's going to take some doing from other teams to help us out. But as Richie said, as Kev said, you can never count out, as you said, we can never count out Liverpool. And hopefully we turn doubters to believers, even in the Manchester greater area as well.
And what I was saying about Chelsea earlier, definitely don't hold any hope on them because Arsenal are splashing them 3-0 at the minute. It's only been 34 minutes played.
Richie, I hope you've got Odegaard in your fantasy.
I haven't, and you know what? I haven't, and I actually backed him to score as a consolation because I know Charlie does have him in his team, and he scored 2.
Yeah, he's on 11 points so far.
On that note, I'm off, lads. On that note, I'm off.
Right, to conclude, anyway, Ugarte looks quite lightly at the moment. Ugarte, quite a few reports and sources coming out about him. Definitely, for us guys here at LSE Transfer Room, is definitely one to be brought in this summer. Again, Gabri Veiga, a possibility. And again, we all like him, but he's not a priority for us. But regarding the rest of the stream, fuck Paul Tierney, fuck Man United, fuck BGA Mall, fuck the referees, fuck the FA, and up the rest.
PGMO, MOL.
Fuck them anyway.
Man City.
I know I'm not bothered about them.
Richarlison,
anyway,
100%.
Thanks everyone that's come on and watched. Make sure you like and subscribe. hit the notification button if you want to keep up on any of these videos. We're going to keep podcasts, so we're going to keep videos up, keep our content going. And yeah, thanks to everyone coming on, and thanks to you boys coming on as well. Up the Reds for tomorrow.